This is Little Green Ghouls, and welcome back to Goosebumps Revisited, a series where I break down a classic Goosebumps book and any episode that goes along with it. I will also be totaling up some of our Goosebumps cliches and classic moments. This week, I'm excited to visit the Cuckoo Clock of Doom. I had a pretty good idea of what this book was about before reading it this week. I knew the big twist at the end, and I knew that time travel was involved in some way, but knowing all these things beforehand didn't take away from the book. This was a good read with a villainous little sister and shitty parents who are fun to hate on, with a fairly suspenseful race against time. It's definitely one worth reading if you haven't yet. I really like this cover, even though the bird's expression kinda reminds me of this kid. The skewed perspective with the cuckoo shooting super far out from the clock is memorable, and Jacobus sticks pretty close to the description we're given in the book. It kinda has a little too much blue going on for me, and I find it really weird that we have another blue and yellow book about time travel, right after a blue and yellow book about time travel. But overall, I think it's pretty great. The 2003 slime border is so similar to the original that there's just not much to say about it other than it doubles down on all the blue. But that's fine, because we all know the cuckoo is the star of the cover anyways. There's no later 2000s version to check out, but the Cuckoo Clock of Doom did get a few pieces of merchandise, with the usual trading cards, a lithograph of the book cover, some window clings that I think I need in my life, and a very appropriate Goosebumps clock, which honestly though kinda sucks because the bird doesn't look nearly as cool as the one on the cover, and this clock doesn't even seem to make any noise. Our front tag says, "Keep your eye on the birdie," which I had to Google the meaning of because it occurred to me that I've heard this idiom before, but I wasn't solid on the meaning. So according to some, it means to have a full view or complete knowledge of something, seen or familiar with all aspects and parts. I kinda thought it meant keep your eye on the prize. Our back tag says, "Don't beat the clock." And this doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me if I think about it too much, because this book is all about beating a literal clock and racing against time. Before we get into the summary, let's read the blurb on the back. Tara the Terrible, that's what Michael Webster calls his bratty little sister. She loves getting Michael in trouble, making his life miserable. Things couldn't get any worse. Then Mr. Webster brings home an antique cuckoo clock. It's old, it's expensive, and Mr. Webster won't let anybody touch it. Poor Michael, he should have listened to his dad. Because someone put a spell on the clock. A strange spell. A dangerous spell. And now Michael's life will never be the same again. This had a bunch of very short sentences in it. Anyways, on to the summary. The book opens with our introduction of Michael and his sister Tara. In the first 2 pages, Michael refers to her as the brat, a skinny little squirt, and Tara the terror. He also describes her as having an enormous red mouth like a clown, so I'm kinda sensing some animosity between these two. They've apparently been fighting so much that their mom threw them outside to escape the constant bickering, but after Tara tricks Michael into stepping into some gum, they're right back inside fighting again. After getting yelled at for tracking gum in the house, Michael yearns for the pre-Tara days, even though he was like 5 years old and can't remember that well. He just knows they had to be peaceful. Their dad suddenly arrives, and after some careful stepping around the family cat Bubba, a fantastic cat name, he reveals his latest purchase, an antique cuckoo clock. Since this clock is clearly going to be vital to the story, I better read the full description. It was mostly black but painted with a lot of silver, gold, and blue designs, and decorated with scrolls, carvings, knobs, and buttons. The clock itself had a white face with gold hands and gold Roman numerals. I saw secret little doors hidden underneath the paint designs, and a big door in the middle of the clock. The dad reveals he got it at Anthony's Antiques and Stuff for a bargain, because there's a small problem with it, but Anthony refused to elaborate on what that problem actually was. I think I know what the problem could be. Something with space and time. Michael notices a small dial on the side of the clock, listing the years from 1800 all the way up to the year 2000, and his dad informs him that the clock also tracks the year, which is why it's currently pointing at 1995. Michael and I both want to know why it only goes up to the year 2000, and his dad just guesses that maybe the clockmaker didn't imagine humanity lasting until the year 2000. Michael then reveals some Y2K reasoning and says maybe the clockmaker thought the world would blow up in 1999. The fear of the Y2K bug is such a funny thing to have lived through as a kid. If you want to go down a rabbit hole, spend some time looking into the fears of Y2K. Or just watch the King of the Hill episode on it, because it kind of sums up the general feelings at the time nicely. Plus it has Hank getting high off of varnish and hallucinating about whack-a-mole.
Oh, Bobby Mole.
I'm wearing diapers, Father.
What?
Bend down. Join the party. Join the party. Up and down.
This is insanity. Keep your heads down.
Michael decides to get an even closer look at the clock and puts his face right up to it when in a chapter cliffhanger a bird pops out of the clock and goes for his eyes. Michael apparently doesn't understand what the cuckoo and cuckoo clock means and truly thought a bird was coming for his life. This results in the entire family roasting him, but let's be honest, he kinda deserved it for this one. The dad proceeds to give us even more info on this clock and reveals that it's from the Black Forest of Germany and it's supposed to be enchanted, and that the creator put a spell on it, so if you know the secret, it allows the user to go back in time. I'm shocked that this clock sat in the store for 15 years with a backstory like that, because I'd probably buy this clock too. It sounds awesome. The mom basically says, quit making shit up because it's turning Michael into a little liar, which are some harsh words for her kid who's just standing there minding his own damn business. Tara is loving it though. The mom seems aggravated in general about having the clock in the house, and she suggests it could stay in the garage. They go to wash up for dinner when Tara stomps on Michael's foot. The poor boy cries out in pain and is immediately told to stop making so much noise by his father. When Michael lets him know that Tara stomped him, he says, "It couldn't have hurt that much, Michael. She's a lot smaller than you are." This is some A+ parenting on the dad's part, Jesus. Michael limps up the stairs and Tara mocks him by calling him a baby. At dinner, they're treated to a healthy meal because his mom is against meat, fat, and chemicals, which are my favorite food groups. Their dad announces Michael isn't allowed in the den for the next few weeks because he doesn't want Michael to damage the clock. And then this book really dates itself. We're treated to a whole ass conversation about needing to use an encyclopedia in the den, which is so large I guess it can't even be carried up to the bedroom to do a report for school. His father relents and agrees to let Michael access the den, but then Tara starts insisting she needs the encyclopedia too, so she can read about the gold rush. It's clearly a lie and she's just trying to be irritating, but the parents fully support Tara, because this is some golden child nonsense. After dinner, Michael heads into the den to get to work, but he's distracted by thoughts of a potentially magic clock. He decides to examine it closer and is looking for the supposed flaw, when suddenly the clock door swings open and an ugly green monster bursts out of the clock. It grabbed me and knocked me to the floor, in a chapter cliffhanger. This of course is just Tara being a little prankster, but I'm left wondering how big is this clock if it can easily house a child in it? The parents come to investigate all the noise, and Tara lies and says Michael was trying to catch the cuckoo while she was just trying to stop him. The parents believe this BS and chastise Michael for playing with the clock. Tara really is a little monster, and these parents are probably even worse for creating the monster. We have a flashback to Michael's 12th birthday a few days prior, and Tara is hell-bent on ruining his birthday, as is tradition for her. She keeps knocking down decorations and just being a brat in general. Michael gets a new bike for his birthday, and Tara proceeds to rush past him and attempts to hop on it. She's too short though and falls off in the process, scraping her knee and putting a giant scratch on his new bike. Michael is rightfully pissed, but once again he gets chewed out by his parents for not being more concerned about his demonic little sister. The party starts and Stein starts listing kids like I care. We have David, Josh, Michael B, Henry, Lars, Cece, Rosie, and Mona. Mona appears to be the most relevant one because Michael has a crush on her. Michael is very into Mona's outfit, which is pink overalls over a white turtleneck. She looked great. Tara has to ruin this preteen romance moment though, because she proceeds to tell Mona all about Michael's crush on her, which results in the whole party having a good laugh at Michael. As usual, Michael's parents take Tara aside and remind Michael to be nice to her. I'm sensing a pattern. Tara tops this moment though, and in the next few pages is revealed that Tara has opened all of Michael's presents to help him. Michael is so defeated by her at this point, he doesn't even really bother getting properly upset. Tara's not done yet though, because as Michael's carrying his cake into the living room, Tara sticks her foot out and trips him. This results in him falling face first into the cake. His mom then says, "What a mess. Michael, why don't you look where you're going?" His mom is trash. I'm waiting for Michael to snap and attack one of these people like Samantha Bird did. Michael then has another flashback to a different awful Tara moment from a week prior, and this one also involves Mona. Michael's in his room getting changed into a frog costume for a play he, Mona, Rosie, and Cece are all rehearsing for, when Tara proceeds to let all three girls into the room while he's standing there in his underwear. This of course mortifies our already beaten down hero. He's still not done though, because Michael then shares another story where Tara framed him for the theft of a baseball hat that resulted in Michael getting his ass beat. Also, during these little throwaway stories, we learn that Tara likes to physically torment the family cat Bubba, so I'm thinking Tara is a full-on little sociopath. The night after his birthday, he decides to frame Tara for messing with the cuckoo clock by sneaking downstairs and turning the cuckoo head backwards. I don't know why he thinks this will work, because we've established that Tara really could break the clock herself, and Michael would get blamed for it anyways. The next morning, he's disappointed to not be waking up to the screams of his father disciplining Tara, and instead he heads downstairs and is greeted with happy birthday. He thinks his family is messing with him, but as the day progresses, it becomes clear he's reliving the previous day. Although, Michael may not be our brightest protagonist, because despite having the opportunity to change the day, he allows Tara to scratch his bike again, embarrass him with Mona, and still manages to fall into his cake thanks to Tara. That night, he's ready for this Groundhog Day experience to be over, but I have to say he's been remarkably calm about reliving an entire day, and is blaming it on his birthday wish. He can't sleep and he decides to tell his parents at 3 in the morning about repeating a day. I don't think this is the best time to have this conversation, especially not with these parents. Michael's in for a surprise though, because he learns that his birthday hasn't happened yet. It's still 2 days away, so he's going backwards in time. I take back what I said about Michael being slow because he's quick to remember messing with the cuckoo clock and realizes it must be sending him back in time. We've had other protagonists where this would have taken them 3/4 of the book to put together. He heads downstairs to check the clock, but it's gone. The timeline of this book is a little wonky because a lot of it is being told from Michael's memory. So 2 days before his birthday is actually 5 days before his dad bought the clock. That means Michael will need to locate this clock to stop going backwards in time, but he hasn't reached that conclusion yet himself. At breakfast, he tries to explain that time is going backwards, but no one has time to hear this. He relives his exact day at school, because Michael for some reason isn't into changing things up all that much. All the fun of going back in time would be getting to do things differently, so I'm kind of at a loss with this boy. It happens to be the day of the infamous frog costume and underwear scene, so hopefully he'll take this opportunity to avoid reliving that experience. There seems to be some elements of predetermined destiny at play here though, because Michael's having a hard time stopping himself from just going up to his room to change like before, but he's able to sit on the stairs and wait for the girls instead. This only works for so long though, because eventually he's talked into changing into the frog costume, and once again Tara busts down the door so everybody can see him in his underwear. At dinner, Michael tries to tell his family that time is going backwards, only to have the entire family start speaking backwards at him and walking backwards, just to fuck with him, before they can't contain their laughter anymore. The parents then explain deja vu to Michael, but he's already aware of that feeling, and this isn't it. I was curious, and some quick Googling told me that 97% of people experience deja vu, because I was suddenly wondering how common it is. I also learned that too much deja vu can be a sign of something neurologically wrong, so now I'm wondering how much is too much, and this is why I stay off of WebMD. Michael has just resigned himself to going backwards in time, I guess, because he didn't even try to figure out what day it is anymore. Unfortunately for him, it just so happens to be the day he was framed for hat theft and ended up getting beaten up again. If Michael took a little more agency in this situation, I feel like this could have been prevented, but at the same time, I think Michael has just been treated so poorly throughout this book that he's become passive and just accepts all the bad things that happen to him. Time then decides to take a big jump back, because the next morning Michael heads to school, only to realize he doesn't recognize any of the kids in his classroom, and that's when it's revealed that he's now a 3rd grader. This does take him a bit to fully realize though, because he somehow missed a mirror or noticed any of his old clothes before getting to school. Going this far back so quickly stresses Michael out, because he's worried about going so far back that he suddenly ceases to exist. Although during this stressful moment he does stop to admire a Donatello Ninja Turtle sticker. He lives out his 3rd grade day and is finding school depressingly boring. He gets home and is greeted by toddler Tara, who reminds him that she was awful even back then by tormenting the cat, demanding a piggyback ride, and then yanking on his hair. Michael still hasn't thought of going to the antique store, even though it was clearly established that the cuckoo clock had been there for years and years at the start of the story, so I'm wondering when he's going to reach this conclusion. He wakes up again and he's even younger, but this time only by a year, since he's in 2nd grade. He sees toddler Tara, who is 2, and wonders if she's not evil yet, and when he goes to give her a kiss on the head, she pokes him in the eye, confirming that she's still evil. At school, it finally occurs to him to check for the clock at the antique shop. He then has a funny scene with a city bus driver who's concerned that a kid so young is riding alone. Michael abruptly tells this driver to mind his business, which throws the driver off, and Michael continues on his journey downtown. He also stops to reflect how bus fare is only 50 cents versus the 75 cents it is currently, and now I'm depressed because it's $3 for a 3-hour pass where I live. Michael eventually reaches the antique store, only to see it's closed for vacation. At this point, I'd be grabbing a rock and smashing my way in, versus potentially dying via existential deletion. Thankfully, Michael has the same thought process and walks over to a nearby construction site and selects a brick for some window smashing. He tries to look casual, and right before he's about to smash the glass, someone grabs him from behind. It's his dad. At first, the dad is angry and confused, but Michael softens him up by saying that he missed him. He tries to tell his dad that they need that cuckoo clock urgently, but his dad is like, maybe someday we can afford it, and hauls Michael home with him, leaving Michael to worry about how much younger he'll be by tomorrow. The next morning, he wakes up in Smurf pajamas, and he knows he's already not off to a good start. He heads to the bathroom and has to stand on the toilet seat to even see the mirror. He realizes he must be about 5 years old now. He heads downstairs, and it occurs to him that one positive thing about being 5 is he no longer has to deal with Tara. He does, however, have to deal with being dressed by his mom. When it comes to tying his shoes, he decides he doesn't have time for this shit and ties them himself. This results in his parents celebrating him tying his shoes for the very first time, but this time he catches his dad mouthing to his mom silently, "Took him long enough?" This made me laugh, but Michael doesn't have time to be insulted and is trying to get this day moving. He gets dropped off at kindergarten and he spends the day finger painting, which sounds like a pretty great day to me. Once school is over, he races out the door and tries to head for the bus, only to get captured by his mom immediately. The next morning, he is now 4 years old and things are looking pretty dire for Michael. He's woken up via song by his mom and shuffled off to nursery school. At school, he's thrown into a sandbox with 4-year-old Mona, and he's reminded on what a tyrant she used to be. She bosses him around for a bit before settling on tickling him with Cece. Michael's had enough and climbs a tree. While up in the tree, he becomes acutely aware that this is a bad decision and remembers nursery schools when he broke his arm. The chapter then ends with a sudden cry of pain. The next chapter opens with Michael waking up again. This time he's a full-on baby, because at first he thinks he's woken up in some sort of jail and only realizes then it's a crib. His mom walks in and stuffs a bottle in his mouth, and to his horror, he realizes he's wearing a diaper. He then has to live through having his diaper changed by his mom. Time for an extra fun YouTube fact that I'm not sure I should be sharing. YouTube Studio will show you common trends that your viewers in general tend to search for, so you can make videos that target your audience's interests. Well, my channel, when it was first starting out, like under 50 subscribers, I learned that living as a baby for a day and wearing a diaper were popular searches with at least some of my audience. Now it just says a couple of Goosebumps related things, but I'll always wonder about my first few subscribers' special interests, and I was just thinking how some of you out there would probably enjoy this little diaper experience, you little goblins. Anyways, Michael is learning he can barely stand and is struggling to control his emotions, which has resulted in wailing like an actual baby would. He tries to speak out, but all that comes out is Dada, when really he meant to say, "If you don't take me to Anthony's Antiques, I'll throw myself out of this crib and crack my head open." I think Michael has reached his limit. Eventually, Michael's mom decides to take him over to the dad's office, where his dad launches into how his son should probably know more words by now. He then compares Michael to another kid, and the parents literally argue about whether Michael is slow or not in front of him. They even talk about having him tested. This kid has had unpleasant parents from day one. It's finally Michael's lucky day though, and it turns out they're shopping for a dining room table on the dad's lunch break. This results in a visit to the antique shop next door, where everybody first looks for a dining room table. Michael's excitement is quickly exterminated though, because he doesn't see the clock in the window, but this only lasts for a page, because wait, the clock is actually just somewhere else in the store. He then encounters his next obstacle, being strapped into a stroller. He's able to fuss his way out of the stroller, and once he's in his mom's arms, he starts crying down, down, down. This results in the mom setting this wobbly baby on the ground in an antique shop. I'm sure the shop owner is appreciating this moment. He can't get too far though, because his mom has a tight grip on his hand. Given the parenting we've seen so far, I'm surprised that she just didn't let him loose. It's 2 minutes before noon, and Michael needs to get to the clock when the cuckoo is out, so he can twist its head around. He then makes his escape while his parents fight over Darkwood versus Lightwood. He reaches the clock and watches helplessly from the ground as the cuckoo begins cuckooing. He then becomes an incredibly fast-moving baby. He moves a chair over to the clock and hops up by the 10th cuckoo. I don't know if he's supposed to be able to reach the bird now or not, because remember this clock was big enough to fit Tara in it earlier, and even with a chair, Michael has to be like only 3 feet off the ground. At the last second, his mom scoops him up, and on the final cuckoo, Michael is able to quickly turn the bird's head around in the brief second he passes by it. He then wiggles out of his mom's arms and races back to the chair, where he's able to switch the year back to 1995. Michael thinks, success at last, but his dad saw him mess with the clock's year setting and goes to change it back. This causes Michael to wail, "No!" in a chapter cliffhanger. We open the next chapter with a bright white light, and suddenly Michael is back in 1995, standing in the garage looking at his new bicycle. He braces himself for a Tara attack, but nothing happens. He asks where Tara is, and his parents seem confused like they've never heard of her before. He checks her room only to discover a guest bedroom instead. The party continues on, and it goes really well this time, and he has a great day. A few days later, the cuckoo clock arrives, and Michael goes to look at it. He wants to see if he can find the flaw, thinking maybe that has something to do with Tara's disappearance. He checks the dates on the side and sees that it skipped the year 1988, which was when Tara was born, so that somehow deleted her from existence. It doesn't make a whole lot of sense, but it did the job. Michael thinks that there's probably some way to go back and fix this mistake, but he decides he'll get to it and he feels like, maybe. And that's how this one ends, a rare happy ending. There is a direct episode pairing for the Cuckoo Clock of Doom, and it contains quite a few minor changes that streamline the episode. Our notable actor this week is John White III, who plays Michael. He went on to star in some terrible American Pie sequels and various sex comedies, including one where he comes on his grandma and kills her. Not exactly my preferred genre, so there's that. Let's start the episode. This opens with Goosebumps' favorite type of shot, lurking behind trees. This isn't blood, but I think it's the closest to actual gore we've seen. Jump scare. This is some gory looking ketchup.
That's it! Michael!
He won't leave me alone.
Tara is ruthless.
You said it was lame and he threw it out, but now he'll probably like it, now that he's in love.
I was hoping for a bigger reaction.
A clock.
An ugly clock.
Whoa! Oh!
I appreciate the attempts to make a clock look intimidating. This was a little violent. nightmare sequence, my favorite. He was going for the Scream Queen title, currently held by Gabe. This is very Home Alone.
What's wrong, little buddy?
I like that he just takes off in the episode.
An octopus!
Look at that weird.
Well, my time's up.
Just don't tell my mom where I'm going. I'm busting out of here.
Where are you going?
There's a weird stranger danger element added to the episode.
You got the time?
Oh, Dad.
I'm surprised they went there.
Maybe I should check your temperature.
Oh no.
Here we go.
Anything but that.
I like that they just left this baby in the front of the store, by the door, alone.
They're right up here.
Great. How much are they, Anthony? 1 minute left.
So that's how we're taking Tara out. This bird is looking rough. I think it's a solid ending.
I'll get Tara.
Who's Tara?
Overall, I thought that the Cuckoo Clock of Doom was a pretty solid book. I enjoyed how unapologetically terrible Michael's family was, and I liked Michael himself, even if it did take him a bit to realize he needed to go back to the antique shop. The overall plot is a fun idea, and it definitely inspired some daydreaming of my own about traveling back in time. Having the climax take place in baby Michael form was ridiculous in a good way. I'm going to give this one 5 out of 5 cuckoos. I just thought that there was very little to complain about with this one, and it was a fun read. Okay, on to our totals. The Cuckoo Clock of Doom didn't have any vomit, it's only dreams, and shoulder scares, but it did have some 90s moments. We finally got some proper 90s moments after having a bit of a dry spell. We had 6 90 moments. This included Y2K End of the World nonsense, encyclopedias for homework, CDs, Ninja Turtles, clock radios, and saving a quarter for a phone call. This raises our total to 103 jiggy 90s moments. In It's a Prank Bro, I had somewhat of a hard time deciphering which would be a prank versus what is just cruel bullying from the terrible family, but I settled on including these 4 moments: Tara hiding in the cuckoo clock to scare Michael, when his entire family starts speaking backwards at him, Tara hiding that kid's hat in Michael's backpack, and Tara tripping him into the cake. This brings our series to 54 It's a Prank Bros. Asshole Victim makes his triumphant return after being dormant for quite a few books, with Tara falling victim to the clock and being deleted from existence. It couldn't have happened to a better person. This raises our Asshole Victims to 17. The Cuckoo Clock of Doom had a total of 9 chapter cliffhangers, which was less than I was kind of expecting. A lot of these just ended matter-of-factly with Michael bracing for another day. This raises our Goosebumps total to 338. The clunky cliffhanger word for this book goes to chapters 2 to 3, where Tara pops out of the clock in a Halloween mask. It's not terrible, but it was fairly obvious. Shocker ending. Our big twist to this story is the clock missing the year 1988, the year Tara was born, so she ends up being deleted from existence somehow, and Michael may consider going back to save her at some point. It's really kind of a happy ending. This raises our Goosebumps series total to 22. Well, that's it for the Cuckoo Clock of Doom. I had a lot of fun reading this one, despite my general dislike of time travel stories. Next week we have the dreaded return of Evan in Monster Blood 3. I have no memory of this story, probably because I was burned by Monster Blood 2, although I have read some comments saying it's a little bit better than the second one, so we'll see. Let me know in the comments what you thought of the Cuckoo Clock of Doom. Do you think Tara got what she deserved? How far back would you go in your own life if you could relive it? And what do you think of my Evil Child clips this week? At first I was trying to choose a theme, I was like, well shit, I don't know many horror movies that involve time travel. Then I was like, duh, Tara's the most rotten sibling we've encountered. Let's go with that. Anyways, as always, thanks again for watching, and make sure you subscribe for
the pride, the love,